One of the things that I've wanted to do with this counter service series is think about the different experiences that impact what happens when we go out to eat. I thought it would be really great to try to wrap up this conversation with one of the things that a person does when the dining experience is successful, which is you go back, right? Like you return to the place where you had this special moment. And, you know, sometimes you're trying to recreate something. Sometimes you're trying to just hope that the good vibe continues. And one of the places that I feel is most consistent around that is being in New Orleans, a city that for me is defined by its food culture and by the restaurants that I make it a point to go back to over and over again. Willa Jean, for me, is a restaurant that I just can't get enough of. There are times when I'm here where I go more than once. And I bring people to Willa Jean, I send people to Willa Jean when I'm not in town. And it's always different, but it's always the same in that no matter what the energy is, no matter what the vibe is, I feel like the Willa Jean team is able to maintain a particular standard. I think that's really hard to do, and it comes from leadership, in my opinion, because I know Kelly Fields, you know, chef and owner, whose spirit is, you know, imbued into that space, and you know, every touch that you get as a customer, you see her reflected in it. Her vision to me is so clear. It just always feels like I'm coming back to a place where I belong. And I think if you could bottle that and sell it to restaurateurs, you'd have lines wrapped around the street for months. I'm ready when you are, so whenever, yeah.
Yeah, what would you like?
Okay, I'm gonna do the barbecue shrimp toast because that's what I always do. And I have my coffee and I have my frosé, so I think I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
My favorite dish to get at Willa Jean is the barbecue shrimp toast. And if you haven't been to Willa Jean, or if you're not familiar with New Orleans dishes, you're probably imagining something that is not what it is. But this dish is layered with a piece of sourdough bread, and it's smothered with burrata cheese, this beautiful fresh shrimp, and a dark roux, a dark gravy that gets drenched all around it. And usually there's some bright, vegetal garnish that really just makes the dish pop. It's so simple, this dish, right? I mean, you're essentially talking about bread, cheese, seafood, and gravy. But there's so much technique and skill and discipline that goes into all of those components, and the thoughtfulness behind the balance. It's why, even as much as the Willa Jean menu might change over the course of a year, that dish is persistent and consistent, and I hope they never take it off the menu because, it's just, I feel like it's always there when I need it. I've been with people who like, I don't know, that kind of sounds weird. You mean barbecue shrimp on toast? Like, what is that? And they get it and they're like, I got it now. That's the kind of dish where I've seen people at the bar order it for the first time and then nudge the stranger next to them before they order, like, hey, you should get this dish. And of course, if I'm the stranger, I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, that's the dish to get here. But I love that kind of sense of responsibility where you feel like you can't let anybody out of your sight at this restaurant without letting them know. As much as I love coming back to the places that I've grown to love, it's also great to add in new experiences that become part of that fold. Being at Dooky Chase's now is a different type of experience with Mrs. Chase gone, and it's a gap I didn't want to be too wide, right? I want to make sure that I keep that presence there for myself. That restaurant is an institution, not just because of who she was, but because of the people she brought along with her, and they're still there. So, I want to return to that place. I think about going to Coquette. I also think about places like her Dat Kitchen. That's a newer restaurant for me, but it's one where, I'm so thankful for the story that Chef Jeffrey is telling there. And, what he's doing with all this blackened seafood and, all this amazing cream and sauce. There's an association with tradition here that I think is sometimes challenging to overcome, but when that opening happens for people, it can be very powerful and illustrated in so many beautiful ways. Like, I know after a certain amount of time has gone by, I need to go back to New Orleans, where someone is always going to tell you as you're leaving, y'all come back, and it's like, of course, like, most definitely, I'm most definitely coming back, right?